let's get into the big topic of open source, something that we actually say at Red Hat.
This is so awesome.
We are an open culture that believes in the importance of
What is that process that a developer, or let's say,
as the Kubernetes ecosystem really boomed?
Hello, welcome, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Thank you for joining us. This is the Ask an OpenShift admin live stream. We are part of the Red Hat Office Hours live stream series, which if you've ever gone to a university or any type of technical or vocational school, your professor may have held an office hours where you can come in and ask questions and hopefully get answers. That's what we're here for. We want your questions, we want your conversation, and we want to hopefully help you out. We have a very awesome topic today. It's the MultiCluster Global Hub from the ACM team. And Joydeep, thank you, welcome back. And Brad, welcome back. I don't know if you guys want to introduce yourselves really quick before we start the top of mind.
Yep. Hi, my name's Brad Weidenbender. I'm a product manager on advanced cluster management for Kubernetes. We'll call that ACM. And one of the components of that is the Global Hub operator. And we were here last year, Joydeep and I, to talk about ACM with performance and scale. And we kind of teased that we'd be back to do this year. So here we are. Joydeep.
Hey, hi. Thanks, Brad. Joydeep Banerjee, one of the architects of the Red Hat Advanced Cluster Management, focusing on the search, observability, the Global Hub, which we'll talk about today, anything to do with scale, and anything to do with edge. And I love AI.
Well, welcome. We're glad to have you. It's kind of crazy. I was getting the episode ready, and I'm like, this is 142. Like I haven't been here for all of these, but like I think I got here around episode 70-ish or so. And it's hard to believe that it's gone by. It's gone by so fast, and it's another year's almost down with Christmas coming up. So it's awesome, and it's hard to believe that it's been a year since y'all have been here. It feels like it hasn't been that long ago. Time flies when you're having fun.
Yeah, we attend sorry, Joydeep, I was going to say, like, Christian Stark from the observability team for ACM was here not many episodes ago, just in the last month, in multi-cluster observability, which Joydeep mentions is a part of. And yeah, we feel the love from you and Sully and the admins that attend this series, because it's hard pressed to stream one of these and not hear you talking about ACM or multi-cluster. So yeah, we're thankful for all of that sponsorship you do, Jonny and Sully.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And back to 140, I was going to say that shows both the breadth and the depth of Red Hat offerings of OpenShift. That right?
It's solely nice commitment to pane. So
yeah. I often hand people a link to, all right, at 18 minutes in, the admins had someone talking about certificates, and this is exactly what you're asking about, and here's the expert,
Yes.
And,
yeah, it's been awesome. So just there's not really a whole lot for top of mind. The one thing I did want to go through is I was at KubeCon last week. KubeCon was amazing. I met a lot of our viewers there at the ArgoCon booth. There were some big announcements at KubeCon, and the big one for Red Hat was that Bootsy and Podman and Podman Desktop were being contributed back to, I believe it was to the CNCF. So it's pretty awesome to see like the work that we're doing. The royal we, right, getting pushed back to the community and given back to the community for further distribution and stuff like that. And then our schedule coming up. So if in the US we have Thanksgiving next week, which I'm very happy because that's my favorite holiday. And so we won't stream next week, but the week after on December 4th, we're going to have the Tigera team, and they're going to come talk about Calico with OpenShift virtualization. They're going to talk about security, observability, all kinds of things within OpenShift and OpenShift virtualization. So really, really good episode coming up. And then we have 2 streams after that, which is going to be on the 11th and the 18th, and we're still trying to work out the sessions, but we're going to have Turbonomics from IBM, and we're going to have Veeam Kasten come on and talk about their disaster recovery stuff within OpenShift and OpenShift virtualization. So lots of good things coming up to close out the year. So really excited about that. So yeah, that's it for top of mind. Brad, Jordeep, you guys want to get going?
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I see. I'm glad you brought up those top of mind topics. I'll go ahead and share my screen and we'll get going. But I think the easiest way to show this really quick is to make a point on your Cilium or Calico reference. They're going to be coming on. That's exciting. We recently had a blog published with the Submariner team. So Submariner is an add-on to ACM, which gives you cluster-to-cluster connectivity. And just recently, they published a blog on connecting Cilium and Calico clusters using Submariner. So you can think about how powerful that is. If you look at the ACM support matrix, we listed here is the 212, which just released in early November. We base it on the capabilities by hub and managed cluster. So the ACM hub itself on this column, and then the managed cluster where the workloads are running. And then as you go down that, you'll see all the different platforms are really agnostic. It's not just OpenShift. And then the red X's obviously are where we don't have capability. But then after we go from hub cluster to managed cluster, we then do per pillar. So ACM has a lot of pillars and capability, and we break down the functionality like that. So as you're watching today's presentation, you'll see the same thing in Global Hub, like this is a feature for Global Hub search or Global Hub policy, or a capability that you can unlock with cluster lifecycle and Global Hub. But the point showing this is that Submariner can connect on these disparate non-OpenShift CNIs, and that's pretty powerful using Submariner to do that. So I just wanted to mention that. And I think if you're also looking at our console, you can see our pillars represented here, like the governance policy engine, the OpenShift GitOps here, and application lifecycle, the cluster lifecycle, using our assisted and Hive technologies under the hood here, and our new virtual machine capabilities that we're proud of, and we've seen some of that in the what's new and what's next, and you'll continue to see us evolving on that. So with that, I'll jump into our deck that we have started here. It's not much. Handful of slides to help.
Hey, Brad,
talking.
I just wanted to ask a question real quick. So Yash Dunge has asked, I'm sorry if I butchered your name, I really am. Says, I'm an intern at Red Hat. There's a customer who wanted to add mandatory annotations to every new namespace created. So I advised the customer to create a gatekeeper policy. But now, but they want to know how to monitor those changes. And Jordeep, I just wanted to give you a chance to answer that directly instead of.
Yeah. ACM, you probably know, supports gatekeeper. So once you create those gatekeeper policies through ACM, then the policy violations, the gatekeeper violations, will get bubbled up in the ACM console. So if they are getting violated, we will see in the ACM governance UI. We'll see right away. Okay. And what we will talk about today is even a higher level version of that. But but you should be able to monitor them pretty handily using the governance framework of ACM.
Yep.
And Jonny will put a link as well.
Awesome, thank you. And I just shared the link to the gatekeeper policy thing.
Awesome, thank you. Yep. We'll probably leave a few links as well too for some of the repos we're showing or the documentation. But the ACM documentation looks much like the UI in that it's broken down by pillar, and so those will be helpful. I think, we mentioned that we were here last year in November to share on ACM's performance and scale. And we talked about coming back this year after the 2.12 release to talk about Global Hub, because one of the reasons why you would need a multi-cluster global hub operators, you've exceeded the limits of an ACM hub. And that'll vary based on workloads, which pillars you're using, and the environment, et cetera, variety of things. But we came here in episode 119 and talked about a specific use case with ACM managing and deploying single node OpenShifts with a DU profile, a RAN industry profile that was being applied by ACM. And those limits were 3,500 single node OpenShifts in our labs, and using ACM to roll those clusters out and get them in their desired state. ACM will use declarative GitOps workflows to get your cluster in its desired state. And so that's what we talked about in that meeting. So if you're interested in how we stamp out 3,500 snows and how long it takes to get the clusters ready, we break that down in that episode. This episode is more like, now I have a need to scale beyond that. And we introduce the MultiCluster Global Hub operator, because now you can have multiple ACMs nested underneath this Global Hub operator. And so that's kind of what we're going to dive into here as we look at the couple of slides we've put together. And so you'll see the slides building out. We start with the hub clusters on the bottom, and each of those would be what I referred to as the nested hub clusters that we've introduced. And we have a global hub agent running on those and pushing up to the global hub itself. And so you can see the architecture here representing in each of those ACM hub clusters. You could think of that 3,500 snow example I gave. And then, obviously that was a RAN industry example of workloads, but this is being used in other industries and large scale deployments, whether it's retail or financial services. Those types of industries also can leverage this architecture. And you can kind of see one of the things that Joydeep is going to demo would be in the middle, the global search. So if you have a fleet of clusters in their spread, geographically around the globe, it can be a challenge managing that. And using the global hub search can be one way to reduce that toil and admin overhead by using the global search. In other words, you're not going to expect somebody to paginate through each of those ACMs, clusters, fleet of clusters, but instead you can use search to find those, whether it's based on a label that we just talked about in the example Joydeep answered the chat question with, or the policy flagging things to come up like this cluster's out of compliance because it's etcd cluster is not encrypted, as an example. Some of the other things that we've heard feedback from customers. Actually, we're going to share an integration with another Red Hat Platform Plus product, ACS, Advanced Cluster Security. So the Global Hub has an architecture that allows us to bring other components in. So we're going to share a feature that was just released with ACM 212, where you can get ACS policy violation alerts in the Global Hub dashes. And this complements the existing ACM policy views. So I think that kind of covers the main points here. Joydeep, did you want to add anything on the architecture, please?
Yes, Brad. If you don't mind, I really love this. This is, I spent such a lot of time in building the animation, so we got to show the animation. So if you can just begin from fresh, I'll just just animate this. Yep. So first click, you have one ACM hub.
Yep.
Now, as Brad said, one reason why you could end up having multiple ACM hubs is scale. And as he said, the other reason why you can end up having multiple ACM hubs is because you want to separate by geography, or you want to separate by domains like dev, test. There can be n number of reasons, right? And this, though we will be referring to telco in a few cases, just to give an exemplar, just to give an example, this we have seen going, this feature we have seen is the fact that customers end up having multiple ACM hubs is across everywhere. And of course, as we go towards the edge cases, right, where there are thousands, then of course it is mandatory, but otherwise it's there everywhere. So now you have one ACM hub. So the ACM hub is managing clusters, right? And it doesn't work in isolation. For example, one of the common cases that we have been hearing is, hey, ACM says the cluster is ready now, right? Which means that the managed cluster is joined and the status of the managed cluster is available. After that, I have to test something on my own on the cluster in order to certify the cluster. Or maybe I have to deploy some other stuff which my enterprise needs. Just a common case. When you get a laptop, when your company gives you a laptop, the company just doesn't buy a laptop and give it to you. Company gets a laptop, preload software and things like that, and then it hands over, right? Likewise, when ACM says a cluster is ready, the enterprise will harden the clusters, configure some things, thou shalt not do this and things like that. It will make it ready. How does it do this? It doesn't do it manually, right? They don't want to do it manually. There is some automation in there. So what they want ACM to tell is, hey, the cluster is ready. Announce it in such a way that I can consume it with my automation, right? Or let's say a cluster has been discovered and you simply want to send a notification to ServiceNow. There can be n number of things. The main thing is the customers who is using has automation and they want ACM to tie into that automation. So what do? Brad, we click. We do one click. And so what, Brad already showed it, but what's happening on the top is we are going to build the different parts and pieces of the global hub.
Yep.
See how it all comes together, right? So ACM will send critical lifecycle events. Critical lifecycle events of the resources it manages. So right now, we are starting with critical lifecycle events of the cluster and policy. So Yash, for example, to your question, if on a managed cluster being managed by one ACM hub, a gatekeeper policy is configured or violated or propagated, etc., we will see this bubble up as an event. And it is, and what really happens is, if we do the next click, not only the event, what becomes very interesting is the change history. Yep. At a steady state, when things are working, things just do not fail. This we have heard repeatedly. Hey, I have a setup of 200 clusters. I have deployed 30 policies across each of those clusters. Now, in a steady state, I expect everything to be compliant, actually. If a policy fails, then I would like to know what are the events, what are the changes that have happened. Did somebody change the configuration? Was it a new cluster that was added and the policy is not compliant on this? Or the policy just failed? That means something probably happened on the cluster. Give me these events. I need this history of events. So that's another portion, very important. Okay. And then let's click on the next one. So now, as we said, you will land up with many, many different ACM hubs, right? Now, when you land up with ACM hubs, and especially if it's one team of people who are managing the ACM hubs, right? Or you need a global vision, okay, then the next thing that would come automatically is, how do I see the inventory across all of these clusters? Now, ACM hub, the first hub monitor has clusters 1 to 100. The second hub has 101 to 200. The third one has 201 to 300. Can't I see it in a single pane together? So we do, in the next click, we'll see we do the common inventory, and in the click after that, we will do the global search. So ACM has a search mechanism. We all know that. Now, if you have multiple ACMs, I still need to search across all the ACMs. In fact, I need to search even more. That becomes, when we are managing 10 things, management is simple. When we are managing 20, it becomes complicated. As the number grows, the sophistication needed for a management tool increases. Otherwise, we just cannot do our job. That is one of the key things.
Yep.
You can be a rock star, let's say, OpenShift cluster admin. When you have 10, you can do everything with the best principles you have learned. When you have 1,000, you just don't have the time to do it in the same way. You need lots of tooling and automation to help you do that, right? And so the global search, I'll show a quick demo of that. But it's something extremely simple. Hey, I have all of these clusters. I just want to know if some pod is running in all the clusters, or what is the version of my operator. Dead simple things like that, right? Now on the search, if you remember, we also show the relationships, etc. So that's the global search. Now that you have all of this stuff, let's click Brad, and let's show the summarization.
Yep.
Let's
And
go
then
now.
I would add on the scale that we know scale is a real eye opener. Like in our own labs or customers' environments, like you'll find your hard limits. You'll find that scale tickles bugs. You'll find scale will introduce your hardware problems to you. Like hardware has a mean time between failure, and when you do things at scale, to Joydeep's point, like you know, an admin managing 10, it becomes more complex at 100, at 1,000. Each of these things becomes exponentially more challenging. And so I just want to reinforce that ACM and Global Hub, they introduce capabilities that will reduce your admin overhead and toil. So go ahead, Joydeep. I just wanted to add that on the scale comment.
Perfect. Spot on. And now you might also want that, you know, I am seeing all the clusters and the policies bubble up. What about my compliance view of the ACM policies? How do they really? I have 6,000 clusters, and I have 10 policies deployed across each. Can you give me a global overview of how my fleet is doing as a whole? And that is what we do in the long-term summarization of cluster and policy. We take all of this information, bubble it up into a chart, easy chart, which mind can comprehend. That is the main thing. Mind should be able to comprehend and not show, 6,000 lines or 6,000 into 20 lines, that, oh, go figure. That's not the way, so that you comprehend.
Sorry about that. I didn't mean to cut you off. Like, can you give me a rundown of like what would actually be in a policy? Like, is a policy, like, is it software? Is it like a specific application? Is it like a resource? Like what is actually in a policy?
Very good question. So policies in ACM is used for a couple of features. One is to configure the cluster itself, and the other one is to do security configuration of the cluster. So let's say, while Brad go on, show it. Let's say you want to make sure that all your etcds are encrypted. You can drive that through a ACM policy, okay? Or you want to, as Yash was saying, you want to deploy a gatekeeper operator where you want to put controls such that whenever you create a namespace, it has to have certain annotations. You do it through a policy, right? So these are the kinds of things to manage the configuration of a Kubernetes YAML or set of YAMLs, or you want to deploy an operator. These are the things you would typically do with a policy.
Gotcha.
A very interesting use case, Jonny, is in telco cases, actually, where for the telco radio access network, the RAN, as we lovingly call it, where they have small clusters, single node OpenShift clusters, which are mounted on the towers you see in front of your house, boxed. There, that cluster is configured using 4 or 5 operators. That whole thing is done using policies. So after the cluster is ready, it's configured, PTP, SRIOV, blah, 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 certain operators are configured. That whole thing is controlled by ACM policies, right?
Yeah, so that's awesome. One thing I like using the policy for is moving secrets. It's like you can create a secret in one namespace and then have it picked up and then moved across. Especially for like if I'm trying to deploy like a similar secret across clusters, right? I think that's where I've really used the policy. I think it's like a placement policy or something like that. I can't remember what it's called.
I mean, you place the policy on a cluster using placement. ACM.
Yeah, that's what it is. Yeah.
Yep.
Right. Okay.
I showed the community repo as well, Joydeep, but the policy engine has a set of community policies out there. But this would be what Joydeep was talking about for telco and RAN. ACM's orchestrating all these different components and operators getting laid down via the policy engine. And this is what we talked about in that last episode, in episode 119, where we did ACM Hub performance and sizing. Go ahead, Joydeep.
Right. Going back to the slide. And yeah, no, you're good. Now we will talk about the summarization of the ACS. We'll do that in a bit. Now the other thing is managing the ACM hubs. Now this actually is orthogonal to what we were talking about today in the Global Hub. We do say that you also need to have a ACM hub. Right. And that is what we are trying to break into different parts and pieces. That is work in progress. As Brad said, getting feedback from customer, that's how we are learning. Hey, there's a whole range of cases where customers just want eventing, change history, and then common inventory, global search. They also might want summarization. And in some of the cases, they also want to manage these ACM hubs from one place.
Yep.
So if you want to manage these ACM hubs from one place, you need another hub at the top. Now, though that hub can be on the global hub machine, it is actually totally orthogonal.
Yep.
It doesn't have anything to do with it, right? Now, when are the cases when we need that? Again, in certain cases, for example, in telco, what they do is they actually start from that managing ACM hub. They start from the hub at the top. And then through ZTP that we have related to telco, they create from this hub, they create, so this is hub 0. They will create the hub 1 and hub 2 and hub 3 and make sure these hubs are managed by the hub 0. And then from here, they will deploy the managed clusters under each of these hubs. So they build up the whole stuff. But not everybody requires that. If you need that, then you need a hub at the top. If you don't need it, then you don't need it, right? So this is, sort of breaking it down into different parts and pieces, right? And
This one.
This one. Okay. Now, having said that, a concrete realization of this, Brad, if you flip to the telco chart, this is, you don't need to understand telco, but the fact is, how this is used in telco. This is lots of telco acronyms. On the left-hand side, where you have the far edge sites, that's where your cell phone and your radio tower, which Brad was hovering over, that's where, when you make a call through your cell phone, that picks up. So that's where things are installed on the pole in front of your house, right? So you have OpenShift clusters, single node OpenShift clusters running there. And then in the middle, which says near edge, you have other sorts of things which are computing with the signals that are coming, other kinds of network computations. You also have OpenShift clusters there. And then back in the right, in the far right, in the regional data centers, you again have OpenShift clusters there, right? They could all be managed. In fact, not they could. They are all managed by, they're all OpenShift. They are managed by different ACMs. And that ACM, you get the global, whatever you call it, global control, global summarization, etc., from the global hub. That's the global hub at the top. Now, this is, as I said, this is a template that is being used in telco. Well, could we take it, for example, could we change it for a retailer?
Yep.
Yes, of course.
Yep.
100% yes, right? That's how it works. And Brad, if we go over to the next one, concretely.
And real quick, George, we just have a question that, so from Kanye was asking, is telco, I'm sorry, they would like to know if any telco is actually using OCP for the RAN side, although they know that they're using it on the core side.
Yeah. So right now, Verizon is putting this into production as we speak. And then we are in talks with lots of other telcos. But yes, on the core side, you're right. There are lots of OpenShifts already in production. And Verizon is actually rolling out in production. We have been working for Verizon for a while now. Gone through the POCs and the first office, the first application deployment, etc. And we are rolling out into production. Yep.
Awesome. Thank you.
And we've had other telco customers go out at Summit or different speaking engagements, and there's blogs out there that talk about this being used in the RAN. So yep.
Right.
And to Joydeep's point, you could get rid of the little RU and DU symbols, and it could be a retail location. So this is just our example to drive home the architecture is this telco workflow, but it's not limited to telco.
Correct.
And just to drop the point home about like where the boundaries are here, right? Like, so when you have your global hub, if that were to tank, right, the cluster went down that was hosting it. That doesn't affect the spoke hubs, right? Like the actual hubs at the lower level, right? So any your environments, your edge sites, your whatever they are, your data centers, they're not affected because it's just the traffic goes up versus
exactly.
They're running in their last known good state, which their desired state, and so if that incident when it when it's over, it just will check its current, the spec for the current state, desired state, and reconcile as needed. So there's no impact to the workloads, Johnny. That was a great question because we hear that often.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then just to Jordy, I'm not sure who this question is actually for, but like when we're talking about like your search, right? It goes into like the you had another block, I can't remember what it was, but it's like the summarized everything, and then you have like your inventory and all that stuff, right? At the global hub level, can you use that as part of like your automation for like some of the GitOps? And like maybe you have like the Ansible controller up there, and you're sitting. Are you able to like scrape that information in and then use that to roll out?
Very good question. So what we are actually we have done some prototypes, but what we are actually working on, blog will be published soon. The event information that we publish in the global hub, that is very ripe to be consumed by EDA and then take actions. As you know, Ansible can send it to ServiceNow. Ansible has lots of automation that we can use very cheaply, right? So yes, Ansible should play a huge part in their suite. And the other portion that you said, let's jump to a demo actually now.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to knock you off.
I'm going to stop.
No. You're totally good.
I'm going to stop sharing, Joydeep, and then while you're getting ready, I'll just share, like Joydeep mentioned, AAP, Ansible, and this global hub, we have multiple elements of Ansible automation platform integrations with ACM, but the pillars I was showing, ACM can call Ansible playbooks pre and post hook on 3 of the 5 core pillars: the application, cluster lifecycle, and governance engine. And then with Global Hub now, we're having this integration with the event-driven, as Joydeep was talking about. So ACM will help stitch together a full automation solution by bringing in the non-Kube things through Ansible or driving things through event-driven workflows.
Yeah, I just think about, just from my perspective, like just lowly nerd, right? Just being able to dynamically pull that stuff in at the top when it's like, hey, cool, I'm already bubbling it all up and getting it in one place, and being able to consume it and then take action on it. That is awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, we probably need another episode just to talk about those integration.
Yeah.
Joydeep, were you gonna show the global search? Did you want to?
Yeah. Can you guys see my screen?
Nope.
Not yet.
Okay, I started sharing. So
yeah, it was me.
Okay, all right, good. All right, now I can't look at the screen. I'm just looking at my screen. So this is a screen from Global Hub, which looks very much like ACM. So this is the global search. It says global search. So let's just do this. Let's see what clusters are being managed by this system. Okay, so say. Don't get hung up on the syntaxes if you don't know. They're pretty easy actually. So this is showing that, hey, I have a cluster called Demo Hub A, which is managed directly by the Global Hub. I have a Demo Hub B, which is managed by the Global Hub. As you can see, as you can infer, this is a managed hub and this is a managed hub. And here is a cluster, Demo Managed 1, which is being managed by a managed hub. So we are already into the hierarchy, right? The global hub is the top one. Actually, I have a picture. Unfortunately, in that picture, the passwords are there, so can't show the picture. So you have a global hub at top, and it is managing Demo Hub A and Demo Hub B. And under Hub A, I have a Demo Managed A1, and under Hub B, I have a Demo Managed B1. So using search to show that you can see everything, right? Let's do another stuff. Let's say I want to look to see if let's do a pod, and let's see if all the alert manager pods are healthy. I will do alert manager. Here it comes, and we should see several alert manager pods. We should see alert manager pod on the hub A. We should see alert manager pod on the hub B. We should see alert manager pod on this cluster. And we should see alert manager pods on the clusters that's being managed, etc. You get the point, right? This is actually searching across the fleet, total blast across the fleet. So this becomes extremely handy. When you have large number of clusters, you want to know what's going on, right? This works like regular search, and for certain kind of things like actions, etc. You will see we are actually linking you on to that hub. So from this point, you can search, and if you need to do further things, we link you down to the details, right? So this is the global search aspect, which is extremely handy. And then let's go and look at the Grafana dashboards. I just brought it up a little while ago. So you can go and look for the routes, and you will see the Grafana route in the MultiCluster Global Hub namespace. Go and look at the Grafana. This is just a test setup, just started, showing the current view. Don't want to walk you through all the dashboards, but what we were talking about is, let's look at the policy overview. Jonny, the question that you were asking, right? So this doesn't have many clusters. This has just started, but a little bit embarrassing, but just go with me.
It's fine. It's fine. It happens to everybody.
This is only one point because it was this just ran today night. Okay, but imagine you have X clusters, and in X clusters you have Y policies, and here there'll be one line summarizing how your compliance is going. There will be one line, and as I said earlier, at steady state you will expect that line to be 100%. That is, everything across all clusters are compliant. You want to slice and dice? Of course, you can slice and dice, on the policies you have in the ACM, you have standard categories and controls. You can slice and dice by them and take a look at that, right? Now, as I said, this will be horizontal. Now, if this is not so, right, then is this interfering? We can drill down actually. Hang on a second. Is my screen sharing interfering with this? We should be able to drill down from here. Okay. This is at 0%, so everything is non-compliant. So let's drill down here, and we will see which policies are offending in which clusters, right? And we see that there's offending policy. This is the offending policy, okay? One policy is offending. Now, remember the events. We drill down further, and here now we actually see the list of events that led for the policy to become non-compliant. This won't say much because the policy was non-compliant just from get-go. It just says that the policy was propagated and it became non-compliant. But you get the point. This shows the history, right? And on a different day, this could show, hey, the policy got changed, etc. And if you want to, since this is not telling you much, you probably would need to drill down to the GRC view of the hub itself. I don't have the password, but this will take you to the ACM hub, a GRC console of that, right? It will stop, but you get the idea, right? So
right.
So we are using the summarization, and from the summarization we are drilling down to the event flow and handing you over. By the way, you can interrogate the event flow on your own, right? So let's say you had a problem around 10 a.m. So you can go here and check, hey, what changed around 10 a.m. around policies or around clusters. You can go and take a look, right? One of the we have not added this one yet, so I probably shouldn't be saying it, but this is a real case. Some good fellow went and scaled down the cluster, reduced one node. If you see that here, you can relate it to lots of other things happening elsewhere. So this eventing and the event history, eventing can tie to your automation, as we talked about, and the history allows you to do lots of troubleshooting. It is, and the more we talk and the more we look at our internal use cases, Jonny, we see that, yeah, that's what we need to build. And then on top of that, you need summarization, you do summarization. On top of that, if you need to also control everything through that, you can do it. But you don't require, if you don't require controls, then you don't require that. So that's the whole idea.
That's right? Awesome.
So, Brad, we skipped the ACS. You want to bring forward the ACS thing?
Real quick before we jump, we have two questions. One is from Fayez, and it says, how are we addressing the challenges of network latency?
Okay, this is a very good question. So Fayaz, if you see what's happening, and maybe Brad, if you share the screen once again,
Yep.
and go to the picture, might be easier to explain. That was the picture that I was. Yes, exactly. So, Fayaz, this is the same thing rerun in a different way. You see the ACM Global Hub, and you see the different ACM hubs under that. Now, the ACM hub to the managed cluster, which is shown as SNOs, there is latency involved there, and the latency involved there does affect how the ACM hub works. And we have done lots of testings with the latency. Brad has those statistics off the top of his on his lips.
Yep.
Usually he does it. Now, having said that, the ACM hubs and the ACM Global Hub, thus far we have seen they actually lie on the same data center. Now, could they lie on different data centers? Yes, they can. But what we are doing is we are actually sending events up here. So, and what it means, if there's a little higher latency on this transmission, it just means that your events are not getting populated right immediately, but a little later, right? So maybe, if it's 10 o'clock and you want to see what's changed at 10 o'clock, you might have to wait till 10:05, right? Given the cases, probably, we have not seen that to be too much of a problem, as far as the latency between the ACM hubs and the global hub is concerned, right? But the latency between the ACM hub and the clusters it manages is very important, and we test that, Brad.
We do. We inject in our like Joydeep showing and talking about this diagram here in the longest line, and it is latency is a reflection of that. We simulate latency in our labs around 150 milliseconds round trip times, and we're able to keep everything on the tracks, if you will. And that latency was chosen for a particular use case and need, and it was basically the geography to go from the East Coast to the West Coast, right? And so if you have a need greater than that, we'd be interested to know. Because we want to make sure that the solution will be suitable or adaptable for all environments, especially bandwidth constrained ones. So if you need to reach ACM team, you can reach us through your normal support processes, or I'm available at Brad with 2 Ds, MIN at redhat.com, and you're welcome to reach me. I'd be curious to hear your latency needs if they're outside of the 150 millisecond.
Awesome. Yeah. And then the last question was from K&A, and it is this Grafana built in?
Yes.
Meaning, does it come along when we set it up, when we set up the hub up, or is it something that they need to deploy and configure after the fact?
No, it is built in. So K&A, if you have used the ACM hub, when you install observability, you get a Grafana. And on the global hub, when you install the global hub, you get a Grafana as well.
Yep.
So Grafana is all built in. So Brad, you want to talk about the ACS stuff a bit?
Let's do that. One of the other things we've heard about is Joydeep showed global search, and that was all around ACM capabilities and being able to see the clusters, the managed fleet in through the global hub pane. And we had a customer, after seeing all the Platform Plus capabilities, they said it sure would be nice if we had a single pane for ACM and ACS policy. ACS has their policy engine, and ACM has one for the cluster in the desired state, and ACS is more around security policy, and they complement each other. They're not necessarily overlap, more than ACS and ACM policy together give you a more comprehensive desired state and security stance in one. Well, we had the customer say we'd like to see ACS policy views alongside the ACM policy views in the global hub. And so with 2.12, which was just released in the first week of November, we introduced a dev preview and I have a blog, I'll include that. So if you just recall seeing Joydeep's screen, and he showed the global search and the policy views there. This would be the same thing, but instead of showing ACM policy violations, we're looking at ACS. And let me put that blog into the chat for Jonny to swivel over to the group chat. But the architecture you can see here is that global hub at the top view, having the ACS views represented by this diagram on where each of the nested ACM hubs in the diagram, we now have an ACS central there feeding that information up to the global hub. So this is new, and so we are just released this with 2.12 as a dev preview. So if you have feedback, we'd love to hear that, whether it's through your ACS or ACM interactions with Red Hat. We'd like to hear if it meets your needs, that's fine, or if you have another view you'd like to see, filter, whatever the feature feedback is, we'd like to hear it.
Right. And this is just a start in the dev preview. As Brad said, we are just bubbling up the policy violation alerts, right? And showing it across the different ACS centrals. So this is a global view of all the policy violation alerts. We want to bubble up more and more. And by the way, on a different note, Jonny, you asked the question, how do you summarize the policy data, right? That one line that, okay, it was one dot in the demo, but you can imagine it was one line. And it is, we talked to a couple of customers to find out what that logic should be. But ACS does it very well when ACS shows a risk summarization. And when ACS calculates the risk, it looks at several factors. It looks at the policy violations. It looks at, the container runtime. It looks at several different things, vulnerabilities, etc., to roll that up. But essentially, it's the same concept. I am running lots of stuff. Tell me in one single point, in a simple way, how much of a problem I do really have. Because that's what the human brain ultimately tries to comprehend as well.
It's a 3 a.m. thing, right? Like if I get called in at 3 a.m. because of an issue, I want to be able to come in and look at something and be able to like dive right into a specific thing instead of trying to sift through a bunch of information to try and get to it, right? I mean, that's, yeah.
Bingo, exactly that. And so, Brad, I think you covered the ACS stuff very well through that blog. You covered that very well.
Yep. I think, did we want to talk about, and we covered the global search. We had, last time we were here, we talked about the sizing, the inspector. Do we want to touch on that again? Any updates there?
Yeah, I would like to give a quick update. But before that, Brad, would you like to talk about the management fabric integration?
Oh, sorry.
Can I ask a question that we just got from the audience? It's from Fayez again, and they asked, can we pull up some reports using this like on a weekly basis? So basically, can you scrape the reports weekly and distribute?
Fayez, what happens is if you're interested in the summarization, then there's a nightly bad job runs that creates the data for the last day, right? And this is retained for 18 months. Data is shown in Grafana. We actually are not in any report generation per se, but you have the data in Grafana, so you can take screen dumps or CSV outputs, etc., and do it, right? So you have a way to access this data.
And then also the one of the things, we're going to leave you with a few videos where we go over some of these features there, where we went through the global search and some of the other capabilities. There's a new feature released with 2.11, and we've expanded it with 2.12, but the ability to export search results. So when you saw Joydeep using the global search, he has the ability at the end to export this as CSV. That was released with 2.11 when global search came out as a dev preview, but with 2.12 just the beginning of this month, we've started increasing the locations where you're going to be able to export out your results to the CSV. You'll see the little floppy disk icon. Jonny, we're keeping that around for us long in the tooth admins.
That's right.
What is that thing there? That's your save button.
That's a real admin right there.
A nod to us old timers. Anyway, so I did want to add that to your reporting capabilities. You'll be able to take that CSV data set out, whether it's search or different sections of the ACM console, and export those out in CSV and then take them to other systems. So then Joydeep, yes, management fabric. As we saw the diagram, you saw a few different boxes on the bottom, and they're kind of allow you to be composable, like global search or driving down desired state from the cluster lifecycle on an ACM hub along Global Hub. One of the items you saw was inventory and management fabric. So what we wanted to share there is another component coming to Global Hub that it will allow us to combine our inventory across Red Hat through Global Hub. And so
there's a dev preview. The link is there.
Yep.
You should.
Let's go ahead and so here's the repo, and Joydeep touched upon this earlier. The events that we're taking and setting up. This is all part of the Global Hub architecture. That's kind of the framework for allowing things like ACS or AAP workflows, event-driven workflows to come in. The initial events being around the cluster lifecycle events, and then we'll expand upon that as we hear feedback from the field. So we're open to having people try these new capabilities out when they're in dev preview and tech preview, and help us advance them to GA offerings.
Right, and as as Brad said, Brad, if we want to go to the slide very quickly.
Yep.
And the whole goal, the whole intent of the management fabric, this is what we have got feedback from the customers as well. As a customer, you're probably managing things on the edge, managing things on the data center, managing things on the public cloud. You're managing rel hosts, you're managing OpenShifts, you're managing maybe even edge devices, you're managing single node OpenShift clusters. Host of different kinds, right? You want that management to be uniform.
Yeah.
Okay, hold on. Now let's go down to the bottom portion of the drawing where it shows platform lifecycle, automation services, security. So what are the management domains? These are generally the management domains, right? You have to manage the platform lifecycle, you have to manage the automation, you have to manage the security services, and so on and so forth. How do these two things come together? Well, they come together, as we are seeing, is when you provide a consistent way to handle authorization, IAM, common identity and authorization. That's the layer. When it's consistent across all the products, across all the domains, then you get the glue.
Yep.
When the inventory is consistent, right? When you get a consistent view of the inventory across all the products, you don't have to run from pillar to post to wherever to see the different pieces, right? That's how you bring consistency. And there are other things that will follow, like analytics and automation, etc. Keeping that in mind, if we flip to the next slide, this is very similar to Global Hub. I mean, in fact, we are delivering this through Global Hub. There's a dev preview. Link is, as Brad showed. So what it is focusing on is the boxes that are grayed out, they still will be delivered as they will still be delivered. All of these things will be delivered through the Global Hub operator, number one. Now, internally, what we are doing is the eventing portion and the change history and the common inventory and two other boxes will follow, authorization analytics. These things will be made common across all the Red Hat products. So the dev preview right now shows about eventing, right? So when we talked at the beginning, we said that the ACM sends its lifecycle events to the eventing platform. And now we enhance that and say in the dev preview that, hey, not only you can send ACM events, you could probably send events through rel hosts and stuff like that, right? So it becomes a common glue across everything. So Fabric and Global Hub are tried, they are being delivered in the same way, but these capabilities are being inserted so that they are not only limited to ACM, they can be used by all other products in Red Hat, right?
Yep.
Whereas the other portions of the Fabric, they are, I mean, the other portions that are grayed out, they remain very specific to ACM. So there's a dev preview.
Cool.
Pick the tires, and we are working on next actually to bring the change history and expose the common inventory. So here you can see all your clusters. You could see all your clusters and policies that are being managed by ACM. But now, apart from that, you will first see rel host, and then edge devices and other things will follow, right?
That
And
is awesome.
and then, of course, the common authorization is actually very important. The same vein of authorization flows across all the products. So that's a goal. And at that level, as you can imagine, Jonny, when you start getting this change information from different things, there's a whole deal of analytics you can start running there to empower. Right?
Yeah.
Okay, and talking about the other stuff, I guess a small comeback. We spoke about ACM inspector. Let me steal the screen share if you don't mind.
I'll stop.
Windows screen now. ACM.
So you're like the tunnel of doom. There you go.
Okay. Now you can see, right? Okay.
Yep.
So we talked about this last year, and I'll keep this causal drawing. The whole goal was, as you guys know, that when you want to do any kind of machine learning or analytics or whatever, there's a whole ton of effort you have to spend in getting the right data, putting it into right shape, and so on and so forth, right? So our first journey with the inspector was that you point it to ACM Hub, you get that data in the right shape, in the right format, so that you can do the analytics and the fun stuff. So if you run the inspector pointing to ACM Hub, you get lots of reports, but one of the key things that you get is you get a gigantic CSV file, which is time-stamped, time series data, and in that it has hundreds of, I don't exactly remember how many, it takes data from hundreds of columns so that you have all the data in one place, right? Now, this data has been thought through very, very carefully, and we are improving, what exactly do we need to collect, etc. But now let's talk about the fact that, okay, we have assumed that we have 150 metrics that we are collecting, right? Now, we want to look at if ACM, as you know, consists of different parts and pieces. We want to know, for example, if the governance risk and the GRC, governance risk and compliance part of the ACM, which is running on the ACM Hub, is getting jammed up, right? It could be also if the ACM search is getting jammed up, if the ACM observability is getting jammed up. As you can appreciate, they are, what drives search is very different from what drives policy, or could be very different, right? Or what drives observability could be very different from what drives policy, or what drives the underlying etcd could be very different from what drives these, right? So on and so forth. So we looked at this data, and then we said that, hey, actually, if we look at the governance, risk, and compliance, this is where we are going, by the way. This is an early peak. If you look at the governance, risk, and compliance, you will see that at the end, there are some color diagrams, but at the end on the hub, you're basically running 3 controllers, and these 3 controllers are their impact, whether they are good or bad, is felt by these 3 metrics, and they're influenced by these 2. So looking at this, doing some very well-known causal maths, we can actually conclude whether your framework is doing good, whether it's stable, or whether it needs help. So we can conclude based on that, right? So this is what we are doing. This is we hope to complete this job pretty soon, and expand it to other areas of ACM. So net, when you run this, we should be able to tell you, hey, is your system getting jammed? And you will know, if so, why is it getting jammed? And then from there, we can build on. So hope this helps.
Yeah, it really did. That was awesome. So, and now we've got a flurry of questions. All right. So the first one is from K&A, and it is, I'm sorry, I got lost here. What are the measures that can be taken for DR of the hub, as this is becoming central point of everything, and this going down would disrupt or would cause observability disruption?
Yes, and there is in our documentation, actually in the ACM documentation, there is a very good description of how the DR works.
Yep. I sent the docs. Yep.
So Kane, let's look at that. And if you have questions, let's follow up on that.
I think the other thing on that is that Johnny's been busy swinging links over to answer some of these questions, and I already see a couple of them are videos like that cover the introduction to Global Hub Operator at a high level, and then there's the global search that you saw Joydeep do today. We go through that in a we have a Red Hat expert with us, kind of walking through the global search in a real world scenario. We realize we also owe some more videos there, and that's a growing series. So, one of the things that we'll probably be doing next would be one around business continuity. So you can expect to see that if you stay tuned, check back in type of thing. But I also provided a link to the workload. There's another question about workload observability. We have that. I have the doc.
Yep, sharing it now.
Yep.
Yeah, so ACM Global ACM Observability does support workload monitoring.
Yep. Yes. Yep.
And then we have the question about how does ACM handle governance and policy management across multiple clusters compared to traditional Kubernetes RBAC, which focuses on role-based access control within a single cluster. Specifically, how does ACM's approach extend or complement RBAC capabilities? This is a great question, Vijay.
Yeah.
We actually do use Kubernetes capabilities. So what happens is, we actually use Kube RBAC entirely. And the extension of that will actually happen through that authorization box that you saw in the management fabric. Now, having said that, let's talk about this briefly. So when a ACM hub manages multiple clusters, think about it that each of these clusters are registered in the ACM hub Kubernetes system as an object. And so a user, Jonny, will have permission to do things on that object, to view the cluster, to do changes to the cluster, to add policies to the cluster, etc. So that's how it is controlled. So the reflection of those clusters are in the hub Kubernetes ecosystem, and then we have these different roles, whether you can see metrics, you can create policies, etc., etc. So that's how it's handled. And the ACM add-on or the ACM bits that are lying on the managed clusters, they actually watch permissions, etc., are guaranteed so that nobody can do a mess, but they actually watch the hub Kube API to see when it needs to do something. It suddenly sees that, oh, there's a new policy which I must bring down. So it brings it down. And then, it doesn't bring down, it watches. And so then it knows what to do on the cluster. And as soon as the policy state changes or become compliant, it again updates the Kube API server. So this actually works very well within the Kube framework. To tie it down to what Brad was telling, this in fact works so well that within a nice scale, 3,500 SNOs, it works very well. So we have no reason to change that. And that's why if you need more than 3,500, we say use another ACM hub.
Yep.
By the way, 3,500 is for SNOs. If they are very large clusters, the numbers will differ.
That's right, workloads. And I think, Joydeep, we touched upon it, but like why the global hub was introduced or architected, scale was one of the plays. You need to exceed the limits of what a single ACM hub could manage, or geography was another one. When you look at that diagram, you saw Joydeep talking about far edge versus the other end, all the way at the other end, the core, or things in the middle, and so one of the other use cases we've seen customers leverage the global hub for is around vendors, each vendor getting their own ACM hub. And that's another way you can slice and dice these things, right? And if you think of some solutions involving double-digit vendors, and often the shared customers between us and so each having their own ACM hub per vendor is another play we've seen here.
Yeah,
so I just wanted to build upon that, Joydeep. Yep.
Yeah, that's it. You covered it.
Yeah, awesome. We've covered all the questions. Do you have anything else that you'd want to share or go through?
We just need to reserve our spot for the next for 2025, right? We need to. Seems like we get to come, as often as you want us, and we will come back and share more. If there's things people would like to follow up on, please send it our way like you do, and we appreciate any feedback that the field can share with us on these things.
So we actually got a question from me where they asked if can you remove the drop down? Are you able to remove like the drop down menu, or is that something that's just like that's what you have? And from me, like what menu, which context are you talking about, like with the drop down?
Yeah, I missed the drop down one.
Yeah, I didn't see it either.
Can you remove the drop down? Was it on the ACM UI? Yeah, you can.
We can disable components like with spec override, but I'm not aware of modifying like CSS or change the GUI layout. No.
They're asking if the ACM drop down can be removed, like reverting back to the original ACM hub, which was an external link.
That's the unified experience. When ACM became a persona inside of the local cluster, you go to all clusters.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no plans to revert back if that was the ask. It's kind of giving you that single pane or single jumping point, if you will, and not having an admin to have multiple URLs. You get the same experience, right? Like an admin that's familiar with being in the local cluster versus all clusters, the experience looks the same minus some new menus and like the things that ACM brings in there, like assisted or Hive, like talking about the cluster lifecycle pillar. Those will be the same experiences if you're in the Red Hat cloud, like console dot. And so it's about unified approach there. Trying to go with my soft no.
Yeah, for me, and this even goes back to like the virtualization drop down. So like if you install OCP Virt, now you get like a context where you can drop down and go into like I think it's like administrator, developer, and then virtualization thing. That's part of the UX. Like when Peter was on a couple weeks ago, and we were talking about that, where it's really about just trying to, for the majority, like they want to be able to go and drop down into that specific area to do the things that they can do. I don't see that really rolling back ever. And apologies from me, like I did not see your question. I even went back and looked in our chat and restream, and I don't see it. So it did not make it through the ether. So sorry about that.
Yeah.
And Fayaz, I think you can reach us separately out, and then we can have a chat and clarify that. Yeah.
Awesome.
Okay. And hey, by the way, the last question: how does Global Hub ACM behave with clusters of different versions? Does that affect governance? Yes, that's where the supportability matrix that Brad was showing comes in.
Yep.
But on the drop down, ping us separately through email, and we'll be very happy. And maybe we are misunderstanding what you're trying to say. So worthwhile having a separate conversation to figure that out.
Because I think instead of removing it, the thing would be to like, is there an RBAC that you could set that prevents, like, if you're not in X group or if you're not in X role or whatever, right? Then you don't see, all you see is local cluster. You don't see all clusters. You know what I mean? Instead, because like the idea of going back and removing it from the UIL, like I just don't see that happening. Awesome. Well, Brad, Joydeep, thank you very much for joining today. This is awesome. You guys are always entertaining. Joydeep, like y'all's energy is awesome, and it's easy to get excited and to get behind these things. To the audience, if you're watching live or if you're going back and you're watching it later and you have questions, feel free to reach out to me. I'm Jonny, JONNY at redhat.com, and Sully is my co-host, and he is Sully, SULLY at redhat.com. And we love to answer the questions. We love to help make you successful. So feel free to reach out to us. If you have topic ideas, anything, whatever it is, just let us know and we'll try and address it. Again, Brad, Joydeep, thank you very much for coming on. This was awesome. I don't know if you have any last words that you want to drop before we depart.
No, well said. Thank you both, Jonny, Joydeep.
Thank you for allowing us, and thank you for the folks listening. Absolutely.
Yes.
This was exciting, fun, pleasure.
Awesome. All right, cool. Well, to everybody else, just so you know, like we have the just want to go right back over the schedule really quick. We have the holiday next week, so we won't be streaming. And then on the 4th, we have Tigera. Calico is coming on to talk about all their stuff. And then, we'll have Turbonomics and Kasten and Veeam later on in the month. So I'm going to close out strong. So appreciate it, guys. We'll see you later.
See you.
Respect.